Hi, good evening, everybody. We are just on a staff standpoint, just switching gears from our ZBA meeting, and we'll be back shortly to make sure we have a quorum.
Works for us. Thank you.
Hi, Ursula. This is Cherie. I've joined the meeting.
Okay, we're waiting for staff. CBA ran long, so we're going to be waiting a few minutes till they get ready to run.
Okay, I'll go ahead and mute till we get started.
Thank you. Well, good evening, everyone. This is Ursula Brashear. By my watch, it's now 6 p.m. Today is August the 18th, 2020. This is the City of Georgetown, Texas Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. Sophia, are you ready?
Hi, good evening. Sophia Nelson, Planning Director. Yes,
Okay.
I was just waiting for Myrna Garcia to get on the line, and I don't see her. But I'm more than happy to fill in her shoes for her.
Okay. Well, since it's time to start, let's start, and would you please call the roll so we can determine which commissioners are in attendance?
Yes, we have, oh, she is on the line here. So let me ask her to do that, please.
Okay, great.
Thank you. Myrna, can you hear us? Can you please call the roll? Myrna, can you hear us? Yes. Can you call the roll, please?
Okay. Yep. Aaron Albright.
Here.
Cherie Heinzman.
Here.
Kayla McCord.
Here.
Marlene McMichael.
Here.
Travis Perseus.
I'm here.
Jay Warren.
Yes, ma'am.
Ursula Brashear.
Yes. So we have a full board here this evening. So we have a quorum, and I will now call the meeting to order. I want to welcome everyone to this regularly scheduled City of Georgetown Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. Tonight's meeting is being held as a teleconference. The complete agenda and all supporting documents for each of the items to be dealt with this evening has been posted on the city's website and is available for public review. Commission members are appointed by the mayor and the city council for the purpose of reviewing land use applications. For some applications, the commission will be the final authority. For others, notably those such as zoning and annexation, the commission will act as an advisory body and, as such, makes recommendations to the city council for their consideration. In a few minutes, we will hear from Sophia Nelson, the city's planning director, who will walk us through the process of how all parties can participate in this teleconference meeting. The agenda for tonight's meeting is divided into three sections: a regular session agenda, a consent agenda, and a legislative regular agenda. As to the consent agenda, any items that the director considers routine and non-controversial or don't require public hearing are grouped together and can be decided on by a single motion. That being said, any item on the consent agenda can be moved to the legislative regular agenda for a full presentation and discussion by the commission, by a commissioner or members of the public. Prior to taking any action on the consent agenda, I will first ask if any of the commissioners have any items they need to abstain on, or if they have any items that they want pulled from the consent agenda and moved to the regular agenda. After that, I'll ask if any members of the public have any item on the consent agenda that they want pulled and moved to the legislative regular agenda. Once we pass the consent agenda, then we move to the legislative regular agenda portion of the meeting. Each item listed for action will be discussed and acted on individually. The process we will follow this evening is: step one, I will announce the item and the file number for that item being considered. Step two, city staff will begin by reading the caption for that item for the record, and then they'll make their presentation to the commission and the public. At the conclusion of the staff presentation, the commission will then have an opportunity to ask questions of staff regarding the item. After the commission has completed their questions for staff, we'll take step 3, which is then the applicant will be given up to 5 minutes to make a presentation to the commission. At the conclusion of the applicant's presentation, we go to step 4, which is we then open the floor to public comments. Sophia is going to walk us through how you can participate if you're here to discuss on a specific item. And when it's your turn to address the commission, please begin your comments by stating your name and address for the record. All speakers will have up to 3 minutes to address the commission unless another person present and signed in to address the commission is willing to transfer their time, in which case an individual speaker may have up to 6 minutes to address the commission. After everyone who has signed up to address the commission has spoken, the public hearing will be closed. Step 5 is the applicant will then be provided up to 3 minutes of rebuttal time to respond to public comments if they so choose. Step 6, the discussion of the item then moves to the dais, and the commission will engage in the deliberation process with the goal of adopting a formal action on the item. So that takes us to our regular session agenda, and that's item A. And Sophia, this, if you will, please give us a briefing on how to proceed with the meeting this evening.
Yes, thank you for that opportunity. Sophia Nelson here, Planning Director. Just a few items to request as we make comment here in this meeting. First, please start with your name as we are recording this meeting and taking minutes. When you speak, please let us know who's speaking, whether this is a motion or just making comments, and that helps us keep accurate records and allows everybody on the line to know who's speaking. Please mute yourself when you're not speaking. This will help in the sound quality of the meeting. And then finally, from a public comment standpoint, you can participate in public comment in 1 of 2 ways. If you're on the phone, the chair will open public hearing. Please just go ahead and speak up when he calls for public comment. If you're online, you have the option to do that, but you can also chat me using the chat function at the bottom of your screen there to let me know that you do want to speak on an item. I'll make sure that the chair is able to know that you're here to speak on a certain item. I ask that you just please, again, state your name very clearly so we know who's speaking, and thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Sophia. Takes us to item B, which is public wishing to address the board. The city has, as a routine matter, provides the public an opportunity to address its boards and commissions on items that aren't part of the regular agenda process. Any person is free to address the board on issues that they feel are relevant. We ask that you contact the staff liaison no later than 1 week prior to the board meeting so your item can be added to the agenda. And at this time, there are no persons who have signed up to address the board. So we're going to move to the consent agenda. And the consent agenda this evening consists of items C through AN. Commissioners, do you have any items on the consent agenda that you wish to abstain on? I think Commissioner Perthius has already noted item AH is an abstain for him. Are there any other items? Okay, not hearing anyone. Do you have any items you want to pull and move to the legislative agenda? Okay, are there any members of the public who have any items listed on the consent agenda that you want to have pulled and moved to the legislative agenda? All right, not hearing any. Commissioners, with the exception of item AH, which is going to move to the legislative regular agenda, the floor is open to a motion.
This is Jay, I motion that we move to approve as presented.
Okay, so I have a motion to approve by Commissioner Warren. Do I have a second?
Travis Pertheus, I'll second.
Okay, a second by Commissioner Pertheus. Any discussion? Myrna, would you call the roll, please?
Aaron Albright,
Yes.
Cherie Heinzman,
Yes.
Kayla McCord, Marlene McMichael, Marlene,
Yes.
Travis Pertheus,
Yes.
Jay Warren,
Yes, ma'am.
Ursula Bashir,
Yes.
This
and
is
did
Kayla. I vote yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kayla.
Thank
Okay, so the motion carries 7-0. That takes us to item AH, and that is file number 2020-39-SDP. Michael, are you here?
Yes, Mr. Commissioner, good evening. Item AH is considering possible action to disapprove for the reasons set forth in the item application for a site development plan consisting of approximately 0.624 acres in part of lots 3 and 4 and all of lots 5 and 6, block 12, North Georgetown Edition, generally located at 901 North Austin, to be known as 901 North Austin Facade Remodel. Again, project number 2020-39 SDP. Okay, so this is for the auto store located at the 901 North Austin. This site development plan is to amend the elevations. The applicant is looking to move forward with some renovations, and this is just to ensure that the site development plan matches what is being proposed. There were several comments by the planning department and a few from landscaping. We've already talked to the applicant about this, and we are expecting the second draft to be submitted shortly here, but this is the first item of consideration, and due to planning staff and landscaping outstanding comment as of right now, we are recommending disapproval for those reasons.
And the applicant is aware of the recommendation for disapproval,
Yes, sir.
and they are they agree with that, correct?
Yes, sir. I have already discussed this, gone over the comments with the applicant, and we will
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions from commissioners to staff for this item? Does the applicant wish to make any comments? Then let's open the public hearing. Is there anyone here that would like to address the commission on this item? Not hearing anyone, I'm going to close the public hearing. And commissioners, as to this item, the floor is open to a motion.
Kayla McCord, move to accept item AH as recommended.
Okay, so I have a motion by Commissioner McCord to approve as recommended. Do I have a second?
Aaron Albright, I second.
Okay, motion and a second by Commissioner Albright. Any discussion? Erna, would you call the roll, please?
Aaron Albright,
Yes.
Cherie Heinzman,
Yes.
Kayla McCord,
Yes.
Marlene McMichael,
Yes.
Jay Warren,
Ma'am.
Ursula Bashir.
Yes. So the motion carries 6-0. Thank you. That moves us to item AO, which is file number 2020-6-WAV. Mike, that's with you again, please.
Yes, sir. Good evening, everyone. Item 2026 WAV, public hearing and a possible action on a request for a subdivision variance from the minimum lot width or street frontage along a public street requirement pursuant to section 6.02.010 of the Unified Development Code to allow 2 new lots to be created along a private road for the property located at 500 Shellstone Trail. Okay, so the property we are looking at this evening is at 500 Shellstone Trail. Shellstone Trail is roughly 950 feet south of the I-95 and Shell Road intersection. The subject property tonight is located just short of half a mile west along the private road, Shellstone. We are just to the north of the Click Computers, and we are just south of the Berry Creek Highlands PUD, Ordinance 2018-36. The subject property is also currently hosting a small construction office. The applicant this evening, who is also the adjacent property owner directly to the west, is looking to subdivide the property from 1 lot into 2 lots. Section 6.02 requires that all new lots have a minimum width of 25 feet and street frontage along a public roadway. Since Shellstone Trail is a private road and the only accessible road to this property, this is requiring a variance request to move forward with the platting process. Again, currently, as you can see on the left, there is currently 1 lot that is 10 acres in size and is roughly 397 feet of street frontage. The applicant is proposing to plat for 2 lots, to have one, as you can see in red, that is 7.26 acres and have 184 feet of street frontage. And then the smaller lot in blue, where the construction office is to remain, is the 2.74 acres that will have 212 feet of street frontage. Listed here, I have 3 photographs that you can see. The property on the, the photo on the left is showing the larger lot 1, which was the red development, facing east along Shellstone Trail. I would anticipate that right around this area is where that second driveway or second access would be. The photograph in the middle shows lot 2, which is standing in front of the smaller blue lot. This entryway right here is the entrance for the construction office. And then on the right, that is a view of west showing Shellstone Trail. That is a single course surface treatment private road. It's a 50-foot wide, 4.3 acre tract to which the applicant and the other 11 property owners within the Shellstone Trail own and maintain. Looking at the approval criteria for the UDC, a subdivision variance requires 4 out of 5 criteria be found by the Planning and Zoning Commission. Staff's findings were that 4 out of 5 criteria do comply. I can go over them with you now. To begin with, that the granting of the variance will not be detrimental to the public health, safety, or welfare. The purpose of the request is to allow the subject property, once it is subdivided, to have both lots have access to Shellstone Trail. Once the property does move forward with the platting, it will be required to meet all the standards for the UDC to plat the property and to later record with Williamson County. Currently, there are 8 large residential lots along the northern portion of Shellstone Trail, allowing just 1 additional lot along the estimated 4,000-foot road will not result in additional high volume of traffic. Also, remember that the adjacent property owner is making the request. Number 2, the granting of the variance will not substantially conflict with the comprehensive plan or the purposes of the code. The subject property is currently located within the ETJ. Properties located within the ETJ are exempt from the city's zoning ordinance and therefore the subject of land use regulations. However, when the property does move forward pending the subdivision variance, when the property does move forward with the platting process, the subdivision regulations such as connectivity, impervious cover, stormwater improvement, public utilities, etc., those will apply to this site. Should also mention that Land Use Policy 9 of the 2030 Comprehensive Plan shows that As the community grows, preserving and enhancing the natural environment can be supported through designing subdivision to save land and transfer densities. Looking at criteria item number 3, this item staff found does not comply. The conditions creating the need for this variance are not unique to the subject property within the vicinity. Currently, all properties located within the northern portion of Steltro only have access to this private road. Number 4, the application and provision of this code will render the subdivision of the land impossible. The UDC requires that all newly created lots have access and possess 25-foot of frontage along a public roadway. Currently, the only road accessible is the Shellstone Trail that is located within the 50-foot wide 4.3-acre tract. Dedication of this tract and roadway as a public right-of-way is how the applicant would have the means to abide by this regulation. That also brings us into section D, where the literal enforcement of this regulation would result in an unnecessary hardship. The enforcement of the regulation would result in the unnecessary hardship with the property owner currently unable to subdivide the property and meet the frontage requirements. Staff did find that this would create an undue hardship of the subdivision for the 10-acre property. Moving forward, within a 300-foot buffer, 8 property owners were contacted. Notice was placed in the Sun newspaper and signs were posted on the property. To date, staff has only received 1 written comment, which was in favor. And again, just to clarify, this variance request is for the requirements for new lot to have frontage along a public street. And again, the UDC section 3.22, subdivision variance may be approved with conditions, or disapproved by the Planning and Zoning Commission. And as you can see, there is a 3/4 majority requirement. That is all I have at this time. I'm here to answer any questions that you may have. The applicant is with us this evening. They do not have a presentation, but they are here to answer any questions that you may have for them as well.
Okay, thank you, Michael. Commissioners, questions for staff? Michael, go back to the graphic that shows the lot, the overall. So Shellstone Trail is a private roadway that is owned by the property owners on either side of that roadway, correct?
Correct, yes.
So what's to say that a majority of those owners can't decide one day to just close that? And a minority say, well, wait a minute, we can't get in or out. That road is not in the public domain. It's not open for public use. And how do we know that that roadway is always going to be accessible? I mean, isn't that the purpose of the subdivision regulations and the requirement? I know that from the county's perspective, they wrestle with access a lot. And there's a lot of effort made to minimize the cost of access by people in the development community, all of which are legitimate functions. But we've got from my perspective, we've got multiple parcels here. What would preclude the people on either side from coming back and saying, hey, we want the same deal, and we wind up, instead of having 9 or 10 lots here, we wind up with 30 or 40 and still no public access? What's the trigger point for, hey, this is okay? Is it just because it's the adjacent property owner that's trying to do this deal?
Yes, sir. Well, again, the criteria, or as the language is written for this evening, you are only approving for this individual lot to be limited to 2 lots. Again, so you could approve with conditions. If there was additional language that you would like to add to the requirement, you would have that ability. So if more cases were to come into the future, we would take those on a case-by-case analysis, and then seeing if they have the same criteria, if it's the same configuration, if it's down the road, do we still have the same requirements for a subdivision variance? There are multiple things that would play effect. And as far as the roadway goes, the 4.3 acre tract is owned by all those 11 property owners. So believe that those property owners would have, that would have to be in agreement. It's not the one person would have the ability to just shut the roadway off.
I agree that it would take more than just one person to do that, but that's one of the challenges with a private road, is that it's just that, it's private. And you know, I have questions about that. So other commissioners have questions for staff? Okay, if not, then
Ursula, this is Marlene.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Marlene. Yeah.
I just wanted to ask if we know what the use of the second or the to be made or created parcel is. In other words, is it commercial? Is it residential? What is there a use in mind?
Yes, ma'am. They would like to use the area for grazing for animals. So it would be an agricultural use.
But owned by a separate party, is that correct?
No, I believe the applicant would also own this portion as well.
The applicant's the next door neighbor, Marlene.
Okay, so my question then is the purpose of this to get the ag exemption on the entire parcel?
I don't believe so, but the applicant is here with us, and I believe that they can specify to that precisely.
This is Amber Kurkowski. My address is 650 Shellstone Trail, Georgetown.
Go ahead.
I'm the adjacent property owner. I don't know if I'm allowed to share my screen, but I can kind of show you the main reason why we want to buy the 7.24 acres. I don't know if it allows me to.
And welcome to the meeting.
Thank you. All right, hopefully you can see this. So my house is located right here in this circle. And then my neighbor's house, like a lot over, is located right here on this edge of the property. So our concern right now is because I'm already leasing the 7.24 acres. I'm already leasing that from my neighbor to graze my horses and my cows on. So our concern is that he's going to sell this whole 10-acre lot, which right now isn't restricted from commercial work. And somebody's going to build a warehouse right here next to my house. And then someone's going to build a warehouse right here next to my other neighbor's house. So that's the main reason why we're wanting to do this exemption. We're not going to develop the land. We're going to keep it as undeveloped. And I would just keep it for my animals, essentially.
So if this recommendation were approved, and this is a question for staff, would we have the ability to limit the future use of this property as part of this variance process, Michael?
I think Michael's muted.
Michael, can you hear us?
There we go. Okay, sorry for that. No, we cannot place any limits on use through this variance, but that could come in at the time of annexation.
So we would be creating, we're giving a green light to creating two parcels, two legal lots here, both of which are outside the city limits, both of which can be used for whatever purpose. I mean, the 2-acre parcel already has a commercial business operating on it, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions for the applicant? All right. If not, then I'm going to open the public hearing. And are there any members of the public that are here that would like to address this matter? Not seeing or hearing any, then we were going to close the public hearing. Commissioners, as to this item, the floor is going to be open for a motion, and I need you to remember that because this is a variance, this item stops here with the commission. This will require a positive vote by 3/4 of the 7 members. So that's going to mean 5 1/4. What is that? 6 have to vote, Sophia?
Yes, sir, 6 out of 7.
Right. So it'll take 6 out of 7 to approve the variance request. And in the process of making the motion, you need to remember to identify the criteria for the subdivision variance that you believe that your motion will support. So the floor is open for a motion.
This is Kayla McCord. Move to approve the requested subdivision variance based on the criteria that the granting of the variance will not be detrimental, that it would not substantially conflict with the comprehensive plan, that the conditions that create the need for the variance do not generally apply to other property in the vicinity, although it may apply to very few immediately adjacent properties. The application of a provision of this code will render subdivision of the land impossible, and where literal enforcement would result in an unnecessary hardship.
Okay, I have a motion by Commissioner McCord to approve the requested variance and citing items 1, 2, 4, and 5 on the list as the support. Do I have a second?
This is Jay. I'll second.
Okay, so motion by McCord, second by Commissioner Warren. Any discussion? Myrna, call the roll, please.
Aaron Albright,
Yes.
Cherie Heinzman,
Yes.
Kayla McCord,
Yes.
Marlene McMichael, Marlene, Travis Berthius,
Yes.
Jay Warren,
Yes, ma'am.
Ursula Brashear,
No.
Marlene McMichael, I think you're muted right now.
I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time getting, I was kicked out of the meeting and I had to get back in. So yes, I vote yes.
Okay, so thank you. The motion to approve passes 6-1. All right, that takes us to item AP, which is 2020-6-ANX, Nat.
Good evening, commissioners. I apologize you're getting me tonight. Nat is actually having some much deserved resting time at a beach somewhere. So I'm going to be presenting this item for him. So good evening. For the record, my name is Andreina Davila. I'm the current planning manager here with the city. And the item that's in consideration for tonight is a public hearing and possible action for a zoning map amendment to zone upon annexation approximately half an acres out of the LP Dike survey to the general commercial district, as well as the scenic natural gateway overlay zoning district for the property that's generally located at 8300 RM 2338, also known as Williams Drive. The property that's under consideration tonight, it's highlighted in red in the screen in front of you. And it is approximately a little bit over a mile, kind of like south east of the intersection of 2338 with Ronald Reagan, and then almost a mile west, if you will, of its intersection with County Road 245. This property, it does have a future land use designation of mixed density neighborhood. And as you can see with the on the future land use map, is that the majority of the property on the, let's call it the north side of RM 2338, is still also within that same future land use category. Across the street on the south side, you have both a mix of the neighborhood future land use category, as well as the open space future land use category. The neighborhood, which is meant to promote a little bit more lower density residential development, and then open space, which is meant to preserve all of our open space and natural areas. So the mixed density neighborhood, which is where this property is located, it's really meant to be able to provide a mixed density residential area that encourages a variety of residential uses, such as single family, detached, potentially duplex type of homes, and then, but it also provides for supporting non-residential uses, such as your limited neighborhood serving retail, office, institutional, and civic uses. And it really also encourages a residential to non-residential ratio of 80% residential, 20% non-residential, in order to be able to provide that balance and those supporting uses for the residential areas. This property is currently in the ETJ, which is the reason why it's an initial zoning destination that's under consideration tonight. However, it is surrounded, and it actually will be made part of the Highland Village 2 plant unit development that surrounds this property. You can see here with this zoning map that the majority of this PUD, it shows it to have a base district of residential single family. However, it really, as you can look at the concept plan of the plant unit development along Williams Drive, RM 2338, it's actually entitled and to be able to be developed with general commercial uses. So along this major thoroughfare, you're going to see that this property will be surrounded by all those commercial uses. And so the intent of the applicant is to be able to incorporate this little triangle piece as part of this overall development. A little bit further to the north, you see this little rectangular piece. We went through a similar process. I think it was probably about a year and a half ago, where this little portion right here was also incorporated into the city limits, zone C3, and then the intent is to be able to incorporate it as part of the overall development for this project. And so the general commercial zoning district, excuse me, it's really meant to be able to provide areas and allow for the uses and development of commercial and retail servicing that will, retail uses that will serve an entire community and potentially even the region. And because of that, it typically encourages uses that do promote and have that are large in scale and that generate a lot of traffic. And it's the reason why it's always encouraged to be able to be located along major thoroughfares, such as major arterials and freeways, which Williams Drive is designated to be a major arterial roadway. You can see in the blue box, the development standards of the C3 zoning district. It has a maximum height of 60 feet, front setback of 25 feet. You can see how the setbacks on the side and the rear increase when it is adjacent to residential, and that would apply to this property. And then the buffer yard that's required when adjacent to residential as well. Some of the uses that are permitted in this C3 zoning district include assisted living, farmers market, fitness center, general retail and office, medical uses. Some uses that may be permitted by right include the data center, driving range, heliport, kennel, and some uses that would require to come back through this process, or a similar process, I should say, which is the special use permit process, those uses include auto parts and sales, bus barn, flea market, lumber yard, and so forth. So staff reviewed the request based on the approval criteria that we have for a zoning map amendment, and we found that it complied with most of those criteria. We found that it complied. We had a complete application for us to be able to do an analysis and be able to make our findings. We found that, and I apologize, it should actually have been partially complies in the staff report, so I apologize for that mistake. But we did find that it partially complied with the comprehensive plan. And the reason for that is that, as you may recall, the future land use destination for this area is mixed density neighborhood. And while that future land use destination actually does encourage and does support supporting non-residential uses, they're meant to be uses that are at a smaller scale to be able to support those nearby residents. The C3 zoning district, because of its nature and its intensity, is typically considered to be more of a regional commercial type of development. And so we would have a commercial type of a zoning district that would allow a little bit more intense uses than what would typically be envisioned along the edges of those neighborhoods. However, as mentioned earlier at the beginning of the presentation, is that this request also includes the destination of this property as with a natural gateway overlay zoning district. And in this particular case, it is consistent with a comprehensive plan because the comprehensive plan update also designated areas as image corridors, William Drive being one of them, where we do want to be able to provide additional aesthetics and really be able to take care of the look and feel of that corridor, and especially as it's treated as being a gateway into the city. And so with the designation of that overlay district, it brings it further into compliance with what is envisioned in the comprehensive plan. We found that the zoning change promotes the health, safety, general welfare of the city, as well as the safe, orderly, and healthful development of the city. As you may recall, this property is adjacent to and will be part of the Highland Village PUD, which includes commercial areas surrounding this property. And in fact, this property is going to be incorporated as part of that development. So with those additional standards, it promotes for that orderly development. We also found that the zoning change is compatible with the present zoning and conforming uses of the nearby property. And again, that's because of the how this property is going to be made part of that Highland Village development, and it's going to be incorporated with the commercial area that has been entitled along this major thoroughfare. And the property to be rezoned is suitable for the uses permitted by the district, while the property in its side by itself may be considered to be small to be able to accommodate some of these high intense uses. The fact that it will be developed with the adjacent property makes it the entire property and area suitable for these uses. As required by our UDC and the Texas Local Government Code, 6 property owners within 300 feet were notified. Notices were placed in the newspaper and signs were posted on the property. And to date, staff has received 1 written comment in favor and 0 in opposition. Because this is an initial zoning request that's going along with the annexation, it's also following the annexation process. So today we are doing the public hearing and recommendation on the zoning only. And then following P&Z's recommendation, it'll be scheduled and go to the city council for first and second readings of the ordinance, as well as a public hearing on both the annexation and the zoning map amendment request. And with that, that concludes my presentation. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Adriana. Commissioners, any questions for staff? I just have a process question for you, please. Will the existing PUD have to be amended in order to incorporate this property into it?
No, sir. It is an option and something that the applicant may certainly do if they wish to do so, but it is not a requirement.
Okay, and this is the same process we used a year ago on a parcel just north of this, correct?
Yes, that is correct, sir.
Okay. Any other questions?
This is Aaron. I have one question.
Sure.
You may have said this, but when is the planned
So it's going through right now. Let me go back here a slide. So if the Following this, the first reading of the ordinance for both the annexation and the zoning will be on September 8th. Second reading on September 22nd. So the annexation would come into effect following that second reading of the ordinance.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
All right, any other questions for staff? Is the applicant here? Does the applicant wish to make a presentation? Not hearing anything, I'm going to open the public hearing. Are there any members of the public that are here that would like to address this issue? Not hearing any, I will close the public hearing. And commissioners, as to this item, what is your recommendation to the city council?
This is Jay. I recommend that we approve as presented.
Okay, so we have a motion by Commissioner Warren to recommend approval of the application to the council. Do I have a second?
This is Marlene.
This is Aaron. I second.
I think Marlene got you on this one, Aaron.
Tag it. Tag it.
All right, so motion by Commissioner Warren, second by Commissioner McMichael. Any discussion? Myrna, call the roll, please.
Aaron Albright,
Yes.
Sherry Heinzman,
Yes.
Kayla McCord,
Yes.
Marlene McMichael,
Yes.
Travis Perthius,
Yes.
Jay Warren,
Yes, ma'am.
Ursula Brashear,
Yes. Oh, the motion carries 7-0. That takes us to item AQ. This is Andriana. This is your project. Please, would you give us the file number?
Yes, sir. The case number is 2020-10 REC, and just bear with me a moment here while I share the screen. Okay. Can everybody see the presentation now?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So the item that's before you tonight, it's actually another zoning map amendment request. However, in this particular case, the request is to rezone approximately 14.5 acres out of the Joseph Fish survey from the agriculture district to the local commercial district for the property that's generally located at 4795 Williams Drive. The subject property that you see here highlighted in red is located on the north side of Williams Drive, just between Wildwood Drive and Penny Lane. And if you look here at the aerial map, it is currently vacant, and there's some dense vegetation on the property, but it is also surrounded by a mix of uses. You have some established residential neighborhoods, more towards the north and the east of the subject property. And then you also have some non-residential uses more towards along the south and the west of the property. And then you also have almost immediately across the street, you have the Merit Heritage facility of residential uses. This property is located within the neighborhood future land use category. And as you can see here, it is surrounded by and in close proximity by other future land use, such as the mixed density neighborhood, which comprises primarily that established residential neighborhood towards kind of like the east of the property. You have a regional center node that's located further south, particularly where Williams Drive intersects with D.B. Wood. And then you have some institutional land use categories nearby. If we look at the land use ratios within this neighborhood category, we really wanted to take a closer look at it just because of the mix of uses that are in this area. In the neighborhood category, actually recommends a, if you may recall from our previous presentation, the neighborhood category is meant to be able to encourage and establish an area for residential neighborhoods. And it does also encourage and recommend supporting non-residential uses But in this particular case, it recommends a split of 90% residential and 10% non-residential. Within this neighborhood category, it really encompasses a big part of this area along Williams Drive, approximately just 6,900 acres. About 91% of those 6,900 acres is actually a property that's located in the TJ. So we looked at some of the existing uses, some of the existing conditions, and we found that about 62% right now of those properties are actually residential. About 7% are considered or fall within that category of non-residential, but then you have about 31% of this whole acreage, approximately just a little bit over 2,100 acres, that falls within this category of being unentitled property or open space or agriculture uses that may, when they do redevelop, it may be able to go either residential or non-residential, depending on how the situation goes. And so, mentioned earlier that the neighborhood is really more for a suburban atmosphere. It definitely has your traditional detached single family homes. It supports some of those limited neighborhood servicing retail and other supporting non-residential uses. But where non-residential uses are recommended and encouraged, it's typically along major thoroughfares such as collector roadways, major arterials, which is what Williams Drive is classified as. But it can also be located along the adjacent, along the edges of established residential neighborhoods. Looking at the zoning district, you can see that we also have a mix of zoning districts within the area. You have your residential zoning district that it primarily comprises of those established residential neighborhoods. You have local commercial and office zoning district, as well as general commercial zoning district, primarily along Williams Drive, the major thoroughfare. And then you also have some multifamily zoning district to accommodate the multifamily development that exists within the area. So the local commercial zoning district, it's really our zoning district intended to accommodate areas with commercial and retail serving uses for those residential areas. And because of that, we typically have areas where we encourage access and connectivity between residential and commercial, and which is the reason why in a lot of the cases, you'll see that the local commercial zoning district is considered to be appropriate and will be fine along the edges of residential neighborhoods. You see in the blue box, the dimensional standards of that zoning district. It has a maximum building height of 35 feet, which is it's similar to a lot of our residential zoning districts building height requirements. You see the setback provisions. You see how the setbacks do increase when it is adjacent to residential in order to be able to mitigate that proximity, the buffer yard requirement adjacent to residential. But one thing that the local commercial zoning district standard also has is the floor to area ratio requirement. And again, that's to be able to accommodate more the scale of this zoning district. And so some of the uses that may be permitted by right in this district include an artisan studio or gallery, a funeral home, general retail and office. You have some medical uses, a library, but all those uses that you see in asterisks at the end of it are subject to the floor to area ratio requirement. Some uses that may be permitted with limitations, which means that they're subject to additional site design standards, include barn, chambers, and pub, bed and breakfast, microbreweries and winery, self-storage, indoor. And then some uses that will require special use permit include uses such as car wash, event facilities, fuel sales, and so forth. So staff reviewed the request based on the approval criteria, and we found that it is a complete application. We were able to do our analysis and review in our findings for the request. We found that the zoning change is consistent with a comprehensive plan. As mentioned, the neighborhood future land use category encourages commercial and non-residential uses, particularly along major thoroughfares or at the edges of residential neighborhood, which this property is located. But also we found that when we did the further split analysis as to what that split would be should this zoning map amendment be approved, and we found that there is actually no change in regards to the percentage. As you compare the size of the property in comparison to the area of the entire land use category, you see that there's really no, there's not a significant change or a notable change in regards to percentages wise. However, rezoning this property, this 14.5 acres to commercial, does bring us a little bit closer to be able to have that recommended split of 1090. We found that it promotes the safety and general welfare of the city, as well as the safe and orderly development of the city. This property is located along a major thoroughfare. It's also located at the edge or at the boundaries of residential neighborhood. And so it provides for that transition in zoning districts, that transition in land uses to be able to accommodate for the site. In addition to that, we found that it's compatible with the present zoning and conforming uses. As you may recall, this property is surrounded by other non-residential similar zoning districts, properties, as well as uses. And the local commercial zoning district is also one that, due to its development standards, is found to be appropriate next to established residential neighborhoods in certain circumstances, such as this one. And then the property to be rezoned is suitable for the uses permitted by the district due to the size of the property and its configuration. All those uses that are permitted in the C1 zoning district may be accommodated on the site in compliance with all the other zoning district standards that would apply to it, such as setbacks, parking, buffer yard requirements, landscaping, and so forth. 66 property owners were notified of this zoning map amendment, as well as notice was placed on the newspaper and signs were posted on the property. On this particular request, we have received 4 written comments in favor and 1 written comment in opposition. Included in your packet, just for reference only, we included some comments that we have received on when this request first started, which is when they were asking for both commercial and multifamily zoning district. However, after talk with the neighborhoods and surrounding property owners, the applicant decided to amend its request to rezone the entire property to commercial. And that seems to be more supported by, based on the public feedback that we received. And so this is a public hearing and possible action to consider this rezoning of 14.5 acres from agriculture to local commercial. I believe the applicant is available to answer any questions, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, any questions for staff?
This is Jay, and it looks like it's going to border 2 different residential neighborhoods there on Penny and then on the other one over in Sun City. So what kind of buffer is there going to be for those residences? You know, I'm looking at that Creek Canyon Trail and Big Bend Trail. So you got a bunch of you got a bunch of Sun City folks back in there that I'm fairly certain aren't going to want a whole lot of night lights and noise and stuff going on. Is there going to be any kind of buffering to that? You know, where the C on the map, where all the C1 stuff is in the tan, I could see having that be C1, and then back behind that dotted line, having that be RS or MF2 or something like that. But having C1 go all the way back into all those people's backyard, I don't know how neighborly that is.
So, Jay, let me take a shot at that. The original application that was submitted followed exactly what you said, C1 along the front portion of it with an MF on the back. That generated a lot of discussion with the neighbors. And after meeting with the neighbors, the application was amended because the neighbors preferred to have C1 zoning in their backyard and not multifamily.
Well, then rock on. All right. That answers my question.
So, I mean, now we still haven't gone through the rest of the presentation, and I may be wrong, but that's my understanding of why we got to C1 on this entire track. This, there has been considerable discussion, as I understand it, between the neighborhood associations and this applicant. Are there other questions from commissioners? All right, if not, if the applicant would like to make a presentation, now is your time to do so.
Yeah, thank you, Commission. This is Nick McIntyre. I'm the representative for the project here. And just to reiterate, we did meet with the original application was MF2 in the back and C1 along the front. And after meeting with the neighborhood groups, they voiced their opposition to having any multifamily in their backyards. We're much more favorable to the C1 zoning district and asked that they would amend our application to that, and they would garner their support for that application. So that is exactly right, and that's where we got today.
Okay, thank you, Nick. Any questions for the applicant from the commissioners? If not, then I'm going to open the public hearing. If there's anybody here that would like to address this application, now's your time to speak. If you're here to speak, please use the raise your hand function on the on your screen.
Chair, we do have a Janet Miller who'd like to speak on this item.
Okay, and Ms. Miller, are you here?
I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Welcome.
Thank you. I was making an inquiry about the family cemetery that's the Keyhole Tract on the west side there. I don't know if you can see it on your map.
Yes, we can.
I just recently learned about this. I'm a Green family descendant, and I didn't notice that there was any cemetery mentioned in the previous discussion.
Okay.
I guess my question is how that will affect the cemetery.
Okay.
You see it's there by the
Yes,
letter
ma'am.
A? Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions, comments for the commission?
Hello.
Yes.
My name is Christy Miller. I'm Janet Miller's daughter.
Okay.
I'm also a Green family descendant, and we just recently found out about this, and we just really need some more information about how they would treat the cemetery. I mean, of course, we're accustomed to it being agricultural there, and really just wanting to get some more information as to how it would be treated. And we're kind of coming in hot to this, and so you know, would like to find out more. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments at this time? Okay, I'm going to close the public hearing, and Mr. McIntyre, you have an opportunity here to respond to those questions or comments if you'd like.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I can say that the cemetery is not part of the application or anything that my client is looking at with this project. They will adhere to the buffers and setbacks in the UDC and it will not touch the cemetery with anything that they do.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that clarification. Commissioners, this moves to the dais now. As to this item, what is your recommendation to the City Council?
This is Jay. I move that we approve it as presented to the City Council.
Okay, so a motion by Commissioner Warren to recommend approval to the council. Have a second?
Kayla McCord, I'll second that.
Okay, and I have a second by Commissioner McCord. Any discussion?
I would like there to be, if there's a cemetery with headstones and all that kind of thing on the property, I would like that to be addressed, and that those remains in that area be not desecrated.
Jay, let me tell you that state law is really specific about how cemeteries are to be treated. If you are a private landowner and you are inheriting a cemetery, you've got, by state law, you have to keep that thing open so that people can come visit that cemetery. You can't do anything to it. You can't desecrate it. I mean, it's a felony offense to go desecrate one. There are generally setback rules that are applied, and cemeteries are serious business, and I can't visualize why anyone would voluntarily step up and damage one. So
Okay,
we still have to go through the subdivision process, and the setbacks and the would all be addressed during that platting process. Now, it's not a zoning issue.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Ursula. And you are the man to ask. I've never had to deal with property with a cemetery on it, so not familiar. So I learned something this evening. Thank you very much, sir.
I have. So,
you've dealt with everything, Ursula, at one point in time or another.
Please, Myrna, would you please call the roll?
Aaron Albright,
Yes.
Sherry Heinzman,
Yes.
Marlene McMichael,
Yes. Yes.
Kayla McCord,
Yes.
Travis Perthius,
Yes.
Jay Warren,
Yes, ma'am.
Ursula Brashear.
Yes. So the motion carries 7-0. That takes us to item AR. It's our discussion items. Sophia, any updates or announcements?
Yes, just a few, please. The first is a thank you. We have almost made it through a year of the shop talk process. So a thank you to the commissioners for all the extra work that this has left you. But a big thank you to our planning staff, who has also stepped up to be able to support this effort. And so it's been a year. The other thank you that I have is, and she happens to be on the line, is Susan Watkins, our housing coordinator, will be celebrating her 3rd year work anniversary with the planning department and the city of Georgetown this week. Susan does a lot of work to support the analysis that you receive from a housing level. She was a co-project manager on the 2030 comprehensive plan. You don't see her very often, but she works closely with the planners on much of the analysis that you get from a housing perspective. And so just a big thank you to Susan for the time that she has given to this community. From just some updates on some projects. City staff is working on the small area plans. I think I shared that with you all a couple of updates ago. The small area plans are for 2 neighborhoods specifically. One is the Track Ridge Grasshopper area, which is often referred to as the TRG. That's the area sort of around our office here in the City Hall complex. It extends from Scenic all the way down to about 17th Street. And just south of 29th, of Highway 29. And the second small area plan that we're working on is for the San Jose neighborhood, which is just west of Maple and south of 15th Street. The first step that the council has asked us for is to do some outreach so that we can establish a full scope and for the plan. And so in the next couple weeks, city staff will be hard at work doing some outreach in those areas in a safe manner, but to be able to understand the needs of those 2 neighborhoods. The last update is on the UDC. Andrena, Ethan, Michael, and Steve in the current planning area have been hard at work at establishing a plan for all the UDC amendments that we have to work on this year. But specifically, we've been working on updates to the landscape and tree preservation ordinance to remove conflicts, to improve clarity of requirements. And so I ask you if you're interested or know people that are interested in this topic. The next meeting is September, write it down here, and then I missed it, September 9th at 3 p.m. It's a Zoom. Sometime this week, we'll start putting all the links to past meetings so that people can watch those meetings. But we're really trying to do our best to ask people to participate now rather than waiting till the end, so that they can be part of the discussion and understand the intent and be part of the discussion the UDC Advisory Committee is having. So if you're one of these people or you know somebody that's interested in this topic, please encourage them to watch and participate starting now in the UDC process. And that's all I have, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Updates from boards and commissions. Just a real quick note that the Georgetown Transportation Advisory Board will be starting the roadway impact fee process review, and with the goal of coming up with a recommendation to carry to the council before the end of the year. And that process will start in September. And there'll be a monthly meeting, and a lot of roadways will be discussed, and potential funding from the development community is going to be on the table for discussion. So that's going to be coming through the process with the goal of being finished by December. The Mobility Bond Committee is starting its process next Monday, and there'll be a series of meetings with the goal of trying to get a consensus on whether a road bond project is needed, and see if there is a recommendation to make to council. Questions or comments from alternate members? Any questions about what we did this evening from any of our alternate members? Okay, if not, just a reminder, our next meeting is September the 1st via teleconference. It'll be starting at 6 p.m. And with that, I need a motion to adjourn.
Marlene, I move to adjourn.
Thank you, Commissioner McMichael. To have a second?
Jay, I'll second.
Okay. Myrna, call the roll, please.
Aaron Albright,
Yes.
Cherie Heinzman,
Yes.
Kayla McCord,
Yes.
Marlene McMichael,
Yes.
Travis Perthius,
Yes.
Jay Warren,
Yes, ma'am.
Ursula Brashear.
Yes, so that motion carries, and we are adjourned at 7:13 p.m. Thank you very much, everyone. Appreciate
Thank
your
you, guys.
participation.
Thank you, Ursula.
All right. Thank you, Ursula. Bye-bye.